Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second round of the Radical Esports Cup in Season 4 of 2025. We've come now to a circuit that everybody very, very familiar with in these cars. It's the Nürburgring Nordschleife for round number 2 in the SR10s. Myself, Ewan O'Leary, and Ron Miles taking you through the action with Romero Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras as always. Ron, this used to be the championship finale every time, but not this season. We have gone for it for round number 2. At least it is still on the calendar, though, the Nordschleife circuit. Everybody's going to know very, very well.
Yeah, very good that it's back on the calendar. Been a little while since it's actually been a fixture of this Radical Esports Cup Championship season. I think the last time we saw it was all the way back in Season 1 of 2025. Took a break in the spring and the summer, but we're here again as the fall has just now started. And looking at the calendar that we've got for this season, you look CTMP last time at the Nordschleife here today, Imola, Belle Isle, Portimao, Algarve. You can see Zandvoort, Mid-Ohio, Hockenheimring, Monza, Watkins Glen, Le Mans. That's still a race that I really have pinned. It's going to be an interesting one, and Road Atlanta to bring this season to a close. You've got a mix of a lot of different things, some heavy draft tracks, some ones that are a bit more on the technical side. Here at the Nordschleife, though, we've kind of got a mix of both in one track. This is really good for the SR10s, really good for us in the broadcast booth, if not a little bit stressful for these racers out there on circuits.
Here are the standings after week 1, and as we know, it does get very complicated, but Andres Friedrich scored the most points last week, ahead of Havok Gullikson. They're the only two to have more than 400. Heinz Braun and Rafa Blanco, the only others to have over 300. Peter Ivany is next, ahead of Andre Castro, who won our broadcasted race last week at Interlagos. Then David Piazza, Lucas Vieira, Leon Gullikson, and Sorli Reitinen. Is Leon Gullikson any relation to Havok Gullikson, I wonder? I don't know what the story is there. But anyway, let's have a look then at starting grid for tonight. And it's Guillaume Perrand who starts on the front ahead of Rafa Blanco. A bit of a surprise there with Lasse Sorensen and Peter Ivany on row 2. Heinz Braun and Eduardo Rocha round off row 3. Havok Gullikson's next on the number 1 car with Andres Friedrich alongside current points leader Emeka Ogazazi. Dazzy is in ninth ahead of Adrian Rostang. It's Paki Caruso and Samir Kadura, who are then on row 6. Maciej Kopernicki is ahead of George Gonzaga, next with Juan Perez, and Ole Gullikson next. So many of them. Robert Woodward and Menno de Graaf are on row 9 together, with on 19th place it is Cadel Horgan with Loris Baylor running up the top 20. Ernesto Romero and Daniel Kroger on row 11, and of Callum Foster and Guillermo Cravo, who will round out the field in 24th position. As far as I can see, there they are all lining up on the grid. A mixed up grid, I think you've got to say, Ron, after looking at that qualifying order.
Yeah, very, very mixed up. These races at the Nordschleife always a bit different in the sense that it's a qualifying session that's away from the race session. Here we just have a quick little practice, then we head off into this race that lies ahead. It's going to be a quick one, 4 laps around this track and go by in the blink of an eye. We saw the Radical Americas Championship run here earlier on this year. Here at the Esports Cup in the official series, we're here for some fun. I love this combination. It's nostalgic. It's a first ever track and car combo that I did a broadcast on. I'm looking forward to it.
You can see the revs rising already. That's very normal. The guys do rev out the engines before the race actually gets underway, which it is about to right now. Here we go. Green flag here from the Nordschleife. We're underway for 4 laps of racing on it. Coming down towards turn number 1. That is a big squeeze on the way in there. They all come through the first corner for the first time and down the other side of the hill towards the Hattenback. Single balance for the leaders, but sorry, for third position. A brief free-wide moment. The field behind seems to have finished auto been stopping, and front bar braking quite stably already in this race.
Yeah, as per usual here at the Nordschleife, drama down into turn number 1. It's the shortest run between that start-finish line and turn 1 of any race here in the Radical Esports Cup, and that usually creates a bit of a stack-up, bit of drama there. Very unfortunate for those racers that got caught up in drama at the very beginning of this race, but for the racers up at the front, it will get them a little bit of a reprieve. You can see the gaps growing. Eduardo Rocha in the number 6 car has dropped down a little bit. He's now down P16, actually dropping below that as Robert Woodward has been able to jump out into that spot. He's now down in 20th. A disastrous start from Rocha, a little bit farther towards the mid-pack of this field.
Down towards Arenberg for the first time for Guillaume Perrin, who leads the race out of Rafa Blanco, and then Peter Eveny and Heinz Brunn and Lasse Sorensen, who break away from the rest of the field. But how close are these guys going to stay in the opening laps here? The slipstream around the Nordschleife is surprisingly powerful if you can utilise it. Starting, of course, from the leader, Guillaume Perrin, who hasn't exactly got away from the rest of the field just yet. This is a little bit what happened further back in the field. Callum Foster having, well, the shortest amount of time between the start line and the crash there. In fact, I don't even think he'd had crossed the start line yet before having an incident there. This was all in the midfield. Have a Gullikson go for a spin. That's what all the smoke was about. And then you can see everybody delayed behind as a result.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Gullikson, the champion back in Season 1 of 2025 here in the Radical Esports Cup. He's on the back foot massively. He'll have to try and work his way up through the field. It's a very long part of this lap that these racers find themselves in before they get back into that drafting game. Here, though, it's kind of like a marathon, not a sprint. You have to pace yourself, realize, okay, we've got 4 laps of racing action here at the Nordschleife. That is a very long amount of time. These cars are fast, but they also have a very strong slipstream effect. And with the counter of that, you also have a pretty bad amount of dirty air heading off through the tight twisties around this lap. So for pretty much everybody up and down the field, the main agenda, firstly, keep it out of the wall, and secondly, keep with your competitors, because if you lose touch with them a little bit too much before you head onto that back flat out blast, you're just going to be a sitting duck.
Down and towards Bergwerk now, with Perrin leading the way ahead of Rafa Blanco, Peter Eveny, Heinz Brunn and Lasse Sorensen as well. Heinz Brunn was on the podium last week, it's worth remembering, in our 2100 GMT broadcasted split race. Blanco finished in 10th place, so he did appear last week, but you see Perrin didn't. This is Rada Rocha dropping even further down, currently 23rd and only ahead of driver who's already out of the race, Callum Foster, who we saw his issue earlier on. Perrin under pressure here from Blanco, and Peter Eveny with the double slipstream can't really go anywhere with it into the mud curve this time.
And you can see there in that moment from Rocha, just overheated the tires in the earlier stages of this lap with the drama in the opening moments. And ever since then, he doesn't have an opportunity to cool them off. This track is a relentless assault on the drivers and the tires on their cars. So you get into the mid-sector and those tires are screaming in agony, and you're going to be backwards more often than not as we see this battle for first still very much intense. I want to keep my eye on our P2 runner of Rafa Blanco. Really, these top 3 drivers that we have seen a decent amount of in the past in the Radical Esports Cup. Perrin, a driver that I don't think I've seen in this series in well over a year, but nice to see him return in that number 2 car. Rafa Blanco won the championship in Season 2 of 2025, so nice to see him running up at the front once again. That's Juancy Perez getting pile-driven in a multi-car accident.
Dear me, who started all that? Ole Gullikson was also involved. There's a number of drivers actually who have been dropping down the last few moments, and it didn't end there actually. Loris Baylor's been dropping down the last couple of moments, and he had contact there on the way towards the carousel, and yeah, it's all a bit messy down the back of the field. Unfortunately, 2 into 1 at the carousel is never going to go.
Yeah, side by side. I mean, it's hard enough to stay on the banking just single file running by yourself in a time trial session, let alone trying to get a move done in a race. That was never going to work at all. But in all that drama, we've seen a little bit of a breakaway. Paki Caruso making up some spots already, up 5 spots from where he started in this race. In the number 5 cars, look at Andreas Friedrich against some pressure from Samir Kadora. Kadora, a racer who I've covered a lot in this series over the 3 years I've done it, and also a racer I've gotten the opportunity to drive with in these cars myself, and I can assure you that he is a very aggressive racer in these SR10s, and based off the fact he tried to go for a move on Friedrich at a section where these cars can lose it by themselves, definitely a move on brand with Kadora, but I'm not sure if that's going to win many favors with Friedrich.
That was a pretty dicey move on the way towards Flanscott in that time round, but there you can see the movers and shakers. I mean, if you just stay out of trouble, again, you will make up places. Ernesto Romero has made up the most, and he's up to 13th so far as they come onto the back straight now, and the long run up towards the Bilstein Bridge. A bit of weaving around going on out front there, by the way, as the slipstream is trying to be broken. There is Ernesto Romero, who is currently in 13th position. Ogazdazi, is up to 9th ahead of Matej Kopernik here further up. Andreas Friedrich gets out of Paki Caruso. Lasse Sorensen ahead of Heinz Brunn as well. Kadora ahead of Caruso as well. It's all going on further up front, and indeed about for the lead between Blanco and Perrin, but Blanco just backs away, and It seems much similar actually to what happened at the Mudcover last time round. Actually, as Rafa Blanco decided to, not go for a move there at the top of the hill. That wasn't a surprise because it's often very narrow and difficult at the top of the hill there. But maybe a bit more of a surprise that he didn't try anything at the end of the back straight there.
Yeah, that is very surprising. I wonder if Blanco tried to go for it and then maybe just lifted off thinking, okay, I mean, the draft in these SR10s, obscenely strong. I mean, I've said this on several occasions. I'll continue to say it for as long as I'm doing these shows. The SR10 probably in the top 3 in terms of drafting cars on road courses at the very least. These cars could probably give some stock cars a pretty high amount of trouble when it comes to how strong the draft is. It's basically like you've got a vacuum cleaner on the back of these race cars sucking them together, especially heading down the back straightaway here at the Nordschleife. That is draft that you can't really avoid. It is just, you feel like a sitting duck if you're the one punching the hole in the air. We've seen it in some of the broadcasts that we have done together here at this track, and the drafting in these cars so strong. Now, long that flat-out blast is, I'm genuinely shocked that Rafa Blanco didn't go for that move, and I'm a little bit surprised that he didn't go for one yet again on Barrett, down into the hairpin. You can see that he had a big run. I think Blanco deciding to play the patient game. I wonder if these three have kind of a gentleman's agreement saying, you know what, we've got it good at the moment. We still have a long ways left to go in this race. Let's just work together and try and extend this gap, so even whoever gets shown the door in this battle can still walk away with a pretty alright result. I wonder if that's what we've got going on between these front 3 right now.
Yeah, I mean, or just to sort of guarantee themselves that it's only going to be them 3 fighting for the win, and then all bets will be off on the penultimate last lap maybe, or maybe even later on this lap. But this strategy has already distanced Sorensen and Heinz Braun in this group, so it's working to a degree already. Here, oh no, off, and Blanco's going to pull it up in time, will he? Well, he's gone a bit wide, and here comes Peter Ivany on the exit towards Callenhard. Inside line he goes, downhill braking zone, and this could allow Guillaume Barron to get the lead. Blanco realises that, I think, and lets Ivany through, but that could be a fatal error as he went wide there through Metzgersfeld.
Yeah, and around this racetrack, if you get knocked off your groove a little bit, it can be detrimental. Of course, with the turns coming back to back to back to back, it's kind of like a domino effect. You know, if you're going down a flight of stairs and you miss one step, it's just going to snowball from there until you eventually trip up, as that's Crevo with a moment ending up stuck in the wall, it looked like. Oh yeah, he did get caught in the wall. That's a first. I don't think in my entire time covering iRacing events I've ever seen a racer get stuck in an Armco barrier.
Well, not like that. That doesn't happen very often. It does happen sometimes when you have particularly wild crashes, but not just going head first into the wall so innocently like that. But either way, that's what's happened, unfortunately, back there. There's been an incident as well, I think, for Ogadazi and Kopeniki as well. He has dropped a bit further down to 14th place now, so I wonder whether there's some more replays coming in a few moments, as indeed there are. Kopeniki sees the car in front going off, Ogadazi I think it is, and just piles in. Didn't really have anywhere to go there through miss as these two in the bottom right hand side of your screen get a bit closer to the leader.
Ooh, as you can see, Hogan very slow, heading down into the tight twisties, and I think he just decided to pull it over and call it a day. It's a little bit surprising about that. But as we have seen, this track, it's a tough one. It's kind of synonymous for being a very tough racetrack. These drivers, though, it's been a little while since they got an opportunity to race around here. I think the last time that we saw it was, again, all the way back right towards the start of the year. I think it was all the way back in February or March the last time that we saw this track play host to a race. I think it was the season finale for season 1 of 2025, the last time these racers, many of them, got the opportunity to be out there on this racetrack. As much as it's one that everybody really knows, I remember as a kid driving around this track on Forza Motorsport 4 on any sort of car that I could get my hands on. I love this track. I know it like the back of my hand, but when you're trying to do well in a race like this, in a series that's as competitive as this as well, you really have to be a little bit more than just familiar. You have to be super comfortable. These SR10s require a very specific set of skills to get them around a track like this as efficiently as these racers do. So I'm wondering if some of these racers still a little bit out of their groove, even though we're very far along in this week at a track that many of them drive every single week, at a car that they drive around often as well.
every time they go through this final sector, you can see that Guillaume Barron gets a bit further away from the rest, and now a second and a tenth. It will go down under a second now from Ivanyev, and I think they're going to be close enough to just about stay in touch with the long straight coming up here. But it is notable how Barron is faster through this section of the racetrack. This is looking back from Samir Kadura, who's at the front of the other group in this field. The front five very much breaking away, but Kadura at the front of the next one with Caruso and Friedrich in the next positions. That's wide from Ivany, and here comes Blanco. He's not going to go from moving to Gallenkopf, but that is going to put him a long way back. Look at that, a second and a half almost it is between the two of them, and well, that is a lot of catching now to get Barron back again.
Yeah, and if these two battle even a little bit on this next lap, they may have to worry about two things. One, Barron just driving off into the sunset, and also a look behind Lasse Sorensen and Heinz Braun. They're not too terribly far behind these racers either, and you can see them bump drafting, heading their way down the back straightaway. Rafa Blanco nearly ended up in the fence coming out of the turn onto this back flat-out blast. I saw him do a little bit of lawn mowing in that car, but he's back up there, giving him the draft, giving him the bump. It got really wiggly there. Those two cars linked together, and in all of that, it's brought the gap back down to about a second, which is usually what I like to call the danger zone in these SR10s. Any higher than that, and they're at risk of losing their draft. But again, here at the Nordschleife, there's not too many opportunities to really take advantage of that draft outside that massively long back straightaway. So if these racers could just piece together a clean lap and maybe keep their fingers crossed to that number 2 car as a bit of a sideways snap, they could very well find themselves back in this battle, which would be music to their ears and a bit of a disappointment to Sorensen and Braun, who were definitely smelling blood in the water a few moments ago.
They're just a little bit frustratingly far behind at the moment, are Sorensen and Braun. It's his second group as well. Kadura, Caruso and Friedrich continue on. 6th, 7th and 8th place for them. George Gonzaga and Daniel Kroger, the last drivers inside the top 10 at the moment, but Kroger's made up a lot of places to get there. You can see he's number 21 in the numbering system, which means he's not one of the fancied drivers, certainly for this race here today, out of the 24 starters who we have this evening. As they come up over the top of the hill, these guys now in this group for 6th place. Kadura takes the right-hander absolutely flat out, as you do in these Radical SR10s, and Caruso just gets into the slipstream here. Oh, and he clips the curb, dear me. He misjudges that completely. I think he must have been unsighted by the 16 car in front of him. Oh, no, and now there's contact. Oh, and a big spin for Kadura across the other side of the road too. And Samir Kadura is out of contention for this race this afternoon. That was coming, really. Paki Caruso couldn't seem to quite judge where he was at the track at any point there, and he's unfortunately involved in an incident now with Samir Kadura down on pit lane.
Yeah, Caruso and Kadura both had a wild ride through there. You could see that moment from Caruso when he slammed that curb as if he was racing in a touring car. The inside, the left side tires were probably, I would say, about 1.5 feet up in the air, which in these cars, I mean, a small little curb whack as we saw at CTMP last time out can really mess you up. Hitting that in these SR10s, he was basically flying a kite all through there. Let's see the moment with himself and Kadura. And it was actually a bump draft gone wrong there from Paki Caruso to the back of Kadura. Nothing that Kadura could have done, and a code brown moment for sure for Andreas Friedrich, who avoided that drama just barely as Kadura speared from one side of the racetrack to the other. Caruso misjudging that massively. He still holds on to P6, but I'm sure Kadura is not going to be a happy customer when it comes to that move that Caruso pulled on him.
Yeah, I'm sure not as well, and you know whether it just does look like a misjudgment, doesn't it? That he just had over the first of all over the top at Flugplatz actually, but actually back down the other side, and so coming towards Schwedenkreuz as well, it seemed to get very, very difficult. So yeah, that's all a big shame, unfortunately, for Kadura, who's now down on pit lane, and only 15 drivers I think have avoided pit lane now out of the 24 who have started this race. A very attritional race, as the Nordschleife always is. 1.3 seconds the gap for Guillaume Barron at the front of the field ahead of Peter Ivany, and then you've got Rafa Blanco, who's just in behind him here. He's just going to use a bit of the reverse draft, if you like, the bump draft. There we go. Just get him squarely, then that's all fine, but that gap is quite worrying actually. 1.3 seconds at this amount of time remaining in the race is quite a big disadvantage to try and overturn now.
Yeah, I feel like Rafa Blanco was just a bit too inconsistent throughout the lap to really hold on to that P2 spot, and Peter Ivany, he hasn't really been able to make that charge either. He's been a bit more consistent when it comes to pace than Blanco around this lap, but hasn't really had that extra spark to close up the gap to the number 2, more or less mount a challenge. So stagnant up at the front between those racers. I think there is a push that is going to come their way, and I said this a little bit earlier on, and it was a bit of a red herring at the time, but I think there is maybe a shot that Lasse Sorensen and Heinz Braun, we see them in the battle right behind those two for 4th. They're going to have to get involved in this battle soon, because those two, they haven't been throwing haymakers at each other. Lasse Sorensen, a veteran in these cars, Heinz Braun, a veteran in these cars as well. As much as Braun is a very aggressive racer in these events, never one to take it easy. He's always the one that's going to take his gloves off and really get physical when it suits him well. I've seen him as a racer kind of mature with age, so to speak, as we've gone a little bit farther along with these races. But Braun and Sorensen haven't really battled, and they're certainly not going to battle, as Braun lost out on a lot of time, now about a half a second, the gap between those two. If they can take it easy, though, and really allow Peter Ivany and Rafa Blanco to start to battle a little bit farther up the road, we could very much so see that 2-2 fight turn into a 4-car scrap.
Yeah, it's looking more like that's the way around it's going to be, rather than a 3-car battle for the lead, with Ivany catching Guillaume Berend. I think the other way around is a lot more likely, as they come through the Stefan Bellerfest now and on their way towards Schwabenswand, sorry, at the end of the lap here. Not long before the Dottinger again, and the penultimate lap of the race will be complete. We'll see what Blanco decides to do. Does he go ahead at one last chance maybe of trying to catch Berend on this last lap? Because we haven't really seen his pace in clear air all day so far. He's decided to stay behind Berend earlier on, and now he's staying behind Peter Ivany as well, hoping that the sort of lack of battling here will allow them to catch the leader. But it's not the best run out of Gaume he's ever had there at the top of your screen, and so it's going to have to be a big slipstream for him, as it will be all the way through the field. Robert Woodward down the bottom of your screen in front of Menno de Graaf, who we're riding on board with at the moment as well. Here comes Blanco. Does he push or does he jump here? And no, he is going to push Ivany. He still believes that pushing the guy in front of him will get them to Guillaume Berend by the end, but I'm just not sure that is going to happen, really.
Yeah, I feel like these drivers doing what they are doing, I give them credit for keeping it going in a straight line, hooking up that way. And okay, that's exactly the problem that I was just going to outline about bump drafting in these cars. They're not stock cars. They don't have bumpers that are meant to lock together like puzzle pieces. The front of an SR10 doesn't look too compatible with the back of an SR10. So whenever you're doing that, can work good when both cars are going arrow straight. But if there's a small little undulation in the road, whether it be a bump or most importantly a turn, the driver pushing won't have to worry about it too much. They'll definitely have to take a little bit of caution if they want to keep it all clean. But the driver getting pushed, I'm not really sure the best way I could describe it. It's basically, if you've ever run down a ramp, like a really steep ramp. I remember one time as a kid, I went to Pocono Raceway, which is my hometown track, about an hour and a half away from where I live, and I was running down the tunnel that goes underneath the track, and that is a steep tunnel, deceptively steep. As a kid, I was running down there, and I was going so fast that I couldn't stop. So if you're the car getting pushed, heading down a flat-out blast like that, you're gonna feel like I did when I was 8 years old. The thing is, though, these racers, they may have less of an opportunity to slam face first onto a concrete floor, but they're still gonna have to worry about slamming straight into a concrete wall.
Yeah, it's always the danger when you're pushing one another like this. It's one, well, maybe not the primary reason, but certainly one of them that I'm surprised Rafa Blanco has decided to persist with this for so long. It's continually decided to push Peter Ivany here, even though I think he might well have some more speed actually than Ivany in front of him. If he'd gotten in front himself, he might have had a chance at catching Berend, because just bump drafting on itself is not enough. I mean, Heinz Braun and Lasse Sorensen are doing the same thing now, and they're not catching the two in front at all now either. Gap now nearly 2 seconds there, so it's very much a case of two pairs of battlers for those minor positions, and looks like it's going to be Berend to take the victory here tonight. As the rest of the field continues on, we do still have 21 in the race. Would you believe it? Samuel Kadura is still down on pit lane, by the way, and so he will he will finish down towards the back, along with a couple of retirements as well, which we unfortunately do have tonight.
Yeah, I know this is a very tough racetrack, and with it, you're going to have some retirees. I gotta say, though, as a whole, these racers have coped with the challenge rather well. You know, I remember I said right before he grabbed the green flag in this race that this was the first ever track that I did a Radical broadcast on. It was my first ever broadcast period all the way back in March of 2023. I had no production feed, so I had no idea what was going on, and I think I jinxed just about everybody, because as soon as I opened my mouth, that was when another incident would take place. Bearing in mind, the SR10 has had a lot of improvements over the past couple of seasons on the iRacing platform. I remember when I first got into driving these cars, there were some updates that basically made it feel like a Formula One car from the 1940s. But now, as much as these cars still have a lot of challenge, they are monsters around any sort of racetrack that you put them on. Lap times comparable to a GT3 car. And I'll tell you what, speaking about some of the lap times that we have had up to this point, your current race leader of Guillaume Barron, his current best lap of the race as it stands right now is a 6:16.9. That is blistering in these SR10s with a Ford EcoBoost engine in the back of them.
That was an attempt at Rafa Blanco trying to come past there, by the way, and towards the muck curve, and couldn't do it. So I wonder whether this is more of a case of Blanco hasn't been able to make the overtakes rather than is simply unwilling to make them at this stage. As Stephen, he goes a bit wide there as well into the Starstrekker, and here he comes on the outside line, does Rafa Blanco, looking right, looking left, and into the carousel. He does not go for it on this occasion. Heinz Braun still keeps the position ahead of Lasse Sorensen. Further back, Daniel Kroger still in front of George Gonzaga. Robert Woodward still in front of Mena de Graaf, although that's pretty close as well for 10th place. In fact, de Graaf does go through on the way towards the muck curve himself. So that's at least 4 two-driver battles inside the top 10. We're going to enjoy on the run towards the start-finish line, or indeed the run under the bridge, because that's where all these battles tend to be settled at the Nordschleife.
And I wonder what sort of swapperoos we are going to have. The gap between Braun and Sorensen once again closed. Braun was able to close it up and jump his way up into 4th. Peter Eveny and Rafa Blanco still involved in their own little battling. I talked about this last week in reference to Rafa Blanco. Won the championship in Season 2 of 2025 here in the Radical Esports Cup. But last season, pretty much everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. But nice to see him out here on the racetrack, currently running in 5th. Do want to touch on your reigning champion here in the Radical Esports Cup and your race winner last time out at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, Andre Castro, not here this week, and hearing as well that he actually had a technical issue. His one wheel rim that he had apparently broke, so he's got a new one on the way. Not gonna be here for this week's 2100 GMT broadcasted race on RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. But I'm sure our reigning champion, some experience racing in cars in real life quite extensively as well. I'm sure he's gonna be back in the weeks that lie ahead, and he's gonna give us another fantastic championship battle to talk about here in Season 4.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very early on to be looking into the championship, but just having a peek into it already here after just a couple of rounds here from Mosport last week and the Nordschleife this week as well, which is round number 2. Now then, how are these battles going to be settled? Which way is it going to go in these pairs? As Guillaume Barron is going to take the victory here by the looks of things by over 2 seconds. He's actually going to put a lap on somebody towards the finish line as well. Somebody who doesn't want to do all 4 laps by the looks of things. Peter Eveny is not far enough in front of Rafa Blanco here. In fact, he might be close enough to actually try and repass again, which might come to his advantage. And there is the slower car just using that a little bit there. There's a bit of a draft. And now Blanco is going to have to be on the defensive here. He might have even got a bit too early as he got past. He's weaving around. Oh, and a big crash in the background. Lasse Sorensen hit the lap car. Lasse Sorensen hit the lap car, and he's going to finish 5th at best here with that moment. Even he comes back on Rafa Blanco as well, as Guillaume Barron comes through the final couple of corners to win here on the Nordschleife in the Radical Esports Cup. What a great victory from him. Absolutely considered and brilliant from him. Peter Eveny finishes 2nd of Rafa Blanco, but does Lasse Sorensen get 5th? Does he get in front of Friedrich? No. Friedrich gets his position in the end. He gets back to the top 5. And it's another top 5 for Friedrich. He finished 4th last week. He's 5th this week. Lasse Sorensen still stopped. He's still not got back going again here. And now he's crossed the line. Now he's crossed the line, Sorensen. We didn't see him, but he is now finished in 6th place. That was drama towards the end. We'll see if we can get a replay of it in a moment as to what on earth happened there to Lasse Sorensen. It looked, though, as if he just didn't see the lap car coming at all, and he absolutely smashed it.
Yeah, I actually took a look at in session, and we'll hopefully be able to load up that replay in a couple of moments' time. It was a lap car of Cravo on the number 24 machine. That was a lap car in that situation. Heinz Braun ducked out, trying to get the draft, and Sorensen just didn't react in time. He just slammed straight into the back of him. Not a lot of time to get that all done. Of course, you can take a look at it in the replay and think, oh, what could have been? But in the heat of the moment, there's not too much that you can do when the car right in front of you dives out of the way, and then you see a car there going much slower. I'll actually go in to see what the speed differential was. Lasse Sorensen was going about 166 miles an hour at the time of that contact. Cravo was going 105, which is very, very slow heading down that back straightaway. A messy incident at the end of this race. Overall, well, it was a very clean event here at the Nordschleife. Just a little bit of drama right towards the end, but man, oh man, what a drive it was from Barron up at the front.
Yep, a brilliant drive from Barron, who takes the victory here tonight from the Nordschleife in front of Peter Eveny, who got back past Rafa Blanco at the end there. Heinz Braun holds off Lasse Sorensen in the end, because Sorensen drops in behind Andres Friedrich. Peggy Caruso was 7th, then of Daniel Kroger, George Gonzaga, and Menno de Graaf. It was 11th place for Matej Kopenicki, who got inside of a minute of the win. It was Robert Woodward, actually, who dropped down late on. Albert Gullickson's first lap problem restricted him to just 13th in front of Ernesto Romero. Loris Baylor was in 15th place, ahead of Samir Kadora, who did get back out on the circuit, actually, at the end. Andres Rostein, Juan Perez, Kael Horgan, Ameka Ogazadazi, who rounds out the top 20. Ole Gullickson and Guillaume Cravo rounded out those one lap down. Eduardo Rocha and Callum Foster were both 3 laps down at the end of that race. Well, a return to the Nordschleife for us here, Ron. I mean, a bit of a surprise winner, I've got to say. I don't know how much you've seen of Guillaume Barron in your time, but I can't say I've seen very much of him at all. And yeah, he was a pretty strong and dominant race victor here tonight.
I feel like the old wise man now, despite the fact that I'm not old or wise, but I have seen a little bit of him here in these radical races. Not too much, though, and I gotta say, though, brilliant drive from him, and a race where we saw some upsets, I think would probably be the best way to describe it. You look through the results, you look through the field that we had, some racers that we usually see a lot of, in the case of Heinz Braun, Andres Friedrich, Lasse Sorensen, Paki Caruso, many others throughout the field, but then you look at some, and really either their first time running with us in quite some time, or their first time ever, as you can see. Unfortunate there for Lasse Sorensen, that contact with the lap car. Heinz Braun really hung him out to dry in that moment. But no, very interesting to see the assortment of new faces and new names here in the SR10s. This community on iRacing, one of the strongest that I've ever had the privilege of commentating on, and it continues to grow season after season. Really love seeing the life get breathed into this SR10 season after season.
Yeah, it is absolutely fantastic, and again, it's been great to get some new names. As you say, I do wonder whether we're going to see them repeated over the course of the next rounds. And just before we go on, it doesn't look like we're going to get any drivers at the moment, but we'll just hold on for a moment in case we do. Talk about next week, because we'll be at Imola for the 3rd round of the championship. That will start same time, same place as you found this broadcast, 2100 GMT, as always, 3rd of October. Yeah, it'll be midday in Sim. Maybe pretty warm because it is late September in Italy, but a very different circuit to the Nordschleife in some ways, in the way that it's a lot shorter, of course, but should still be the same great racing. I think it's going to be another one of those circuits, a bit like Sebring last season and so on, where it's the perfect mix between overtaking possibility, especially down towards Tamburello, but also technical challenge for the drivers as well.
Yeah, that's the exact way that I was going to describe it, and you got those flat athletics that are going to make that slipstream game super important. But again, it's a challenging racetrack at Imola. That's one of the tracks that I haven't gotten the opportunity to cover. It's occasionally popped up. I think it's probably popped up once or twice. It's once every year that it appears. 2023, couldn't do the broadcast for then. 2024, couldn't do the broadcast then, unfortunately. Now here for 2025, I'll be on that broadcast with you, and it is going to be a really fun race at Imola. And that run up into the chicane at the very start of the race, the run down to Tamburello, that is going to be a magnificent way to get that race up and rolling. I'm looking forward to it. Again, to all you tuning into the show, you can catch it exactly the same time at exactly the same place in 1 week's time.
Yeah, absolutely, and hopefully after the race we'll be able to chat to some drivers then as well, because they haven't joined us tonight. So a big thanks to everyone who's been tuned in tonight to this Radical Esports Cup race from the Nordschleife. It's been a bit of a homecoming for us here tonight, although it is only round 2 and not indeed the end of a season. We'll be back next week with Imola on October 3rd, as we mentioned, but for now, from myself, Ewan O'Leary, Ron Miles and Romero Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras here tonight, it's goodbye from the Nordschleife. We'll see you again in 1 week's time for more Radical Esports Cup racing.